All right, so it seems like we are all good to go. So welcome to another session of Azure Power Lunch. And this session will be recorded and shared publicly. So if you don't want to be recorded, please feel free to drop off. And today I will be presenting the Azure Search Custom Web API skill. So let's start with the introduction real quick. My name is Maulik Soni. I am a cloud solutions architect at Microsoft. And I will be presenting the Azure Search topic today with a quick couple slides as well as the follow-up with the demonstration. So first of all, what is Azure Search? So Azure Search is a search as a service, which allows you to incorporate great experience of search into your web, mobile, and enterprise applications. And historically, creating a search infrastructure is kind of a time consuming thing because you have to worry about so many things. Azure Search provides that takes away the pain of creating and needing the infrastructure for you to provision, as well as there are certain aspects that it tries to simplify for a developer to right jump on it.
I'd like to
So
make
when,
a point.
all right, so I thought somebody has a question, but I think it might be just the side chat. OK, so Azure Search with combined with the cognitive skills, it provides so many avenues for further enrichment. Some of the examples of cognitive skills that are built into the Azure Cognitive Search are like key phrase extraction, sentiment analysis, text recognition, the face detection, and so forth. What we will be taking a look today is actually a custom skill. So custom skill further extends these built-in skills and allows you to make any external API call to further enrich your search data. So our scenario today is such like this. Let's say you want to index and search your movie title database. Now you have some information, but you want to also add additional fields which will be enriched by making an external API call, right? So if you can look at the sample data set, you have a title ID, the title name, and release year. This data comes from your own data set. But you also want to add two more new fields called enrichment ID and enrichment name. Now you want to populate this information by making an external IMDb API call, right? And you want that data to be populated and become part of your search experience. So the process would look something like this is you will have a CSV file. There are different ways you can load this data into Azure Search. We will take a look at example of a CSV file, but you can have Excel files, CSV, unstructured data, JSONs. Those are pretty common as a source for you to index it. So we'll start with the CSV file, which is stored in Azure Blob Storage. And then we will be using the import data wizard of Azure Search to configure a custom skill. Now this custom skill is essentially a function app running on the function plan. And what it does is it makes a Bing search API call internally with the title name that has been passed. So in this example, the movie name, and Bing API search does the search on IMDb and returns the IMDb ID and the name of the movie with the year. So with that, in the demonstration, what we will be doing is we'll create a new Azure Search instance. Then we will configure a custom skill. This will essentially a web API skill to be specific. And then we will use the import data wizard to stitch together this custom skill with an indexer definition. Once we have all those pieces in place, we can run the indexer. And at that point, Azure Search will pull the data from CSV file, make an external call to API, combine all the data, and put it into the searchable index. And then we will conclude with a quick search, making sure that we can see the field is populated. So with this, I will head over to Azure portal. And here I am in a search demo resource group. So we'll go ahead and create add. And you can search for Azure search. So you can click on Azure Cognitive Search. Okay. So the only name it requires is the name of the cognitive search, right? So my demo search is not available. 001. Make sure this is unique and select your region. So I'm going to select the West US and the pricing tier. So there are different pricing available. I think if you want to just get started, you can start with the free tier. I would at least recommend that for any real purpose, you would start with the basic tier, which allows you the custom skill execution and so forth. Now, as your need increases, you can see that how many indexes and indexer it can have, each plan can have. So for example, let's say if you want to build a system with more than 15 indexes to search for an application to search on, you will need to move on to the second standard tier, which allows 50 indexes and the 50 indexers, which can import data into it. And the pricing is available right here. So we can go ahead with basic here and then next scale. So if you're familiar with any search technology, there is a concept of replicas and partitions. This Azure search is highly responsive search. It's make very quick for you to make a search request and the response is returned extremely fast. Now, the way it can do it is it partitions the data into different replicas and the partitions. And whenever a search request is received, each partition can does their work and the result is combined and send it back to the user. So any production scenario, you would probably want to use the 3 replicas and 3 partitions minimum. But with this demo, I will just go with 1. Okay. And this is where you will go ahead and create a search service. Now it may take some time, so I already have provisioned a search service. So we will move on to the second step, which is, so for the custom web API skill, what we will be using is an Azure function. Now, I have an Azure boilerplate code, and you can, if you want a full source code, this is the article that you would probably refer to. And in this article, there is an example of an Azure function call. Now this template is it's a little bit specific to the custom skill. The way it has the input serializer and output serializer, I would recommend that you would start with this template and then make a customizations. So with that, I have that function code uh, inside my function. And first thing you need to provide, I'm providing here is the Bing Search API endpoint. So if you remember from our workflow, we will be invoking a function, but function also invokes a Bing Search API to search on IMDb database. So this is where I need a Bing Search endpoint, but it doesn't have to be Bing Search. It could be your use case specific item, right? Let's say you want to look up a customer. So this will be your API, which will look up the customer information and populates that along with other data so that it becomes searchable. The second thing I'm doing here is making an actual call to the Bing API. So in this case, I am taking a query, which is my title name, which is a movie title name. I'm taking that and then passing it to the Bing Search API. And Bing Search is returning me the result, right? So once the result is returned, I am extracting the title URL and title name, which are the 2 fields that I will be populating along with the search. Now, what I have done is I went ahead and actually hosted this function into the function plan, which is pretty standard and out of the current scope of custom skill. But you can actually, all in the end, all you need is a URL where a custom skill can make a call to that particular URL or web API. It doesn't also has to be function. It could be your own APIs. So with that, the third step here is to create a custom skill. Now, currently, if I go back to this, so I'm currently inside the Azure Search Service, and there is a tab called Skill Set. So you can click on that, and you will see a new skill here. So currently there is no way to add a skill from within the portal. So there are a couple of ways you can do it. You can use a postman request to create a skill. So in this case, and before we do that, let me make sure that our function app, which will be invoked by the custom skill, is up and running, right? So this is my API, the function app URL. So we'll make a sample request with the movie name, the matrix, and it should return us the result with the ID and the source URL. So you can see the input and output structure is very specific to custom skill. I would recommend you refer to the documentation. So the input name is this, and the output is the name and additional fields. So this name is actually returned by IMDb, and this is the URL where you can find more information about that movie. Now, once I have the function running, uh, I need to specify the function URI into my custom skill, right? So I pre-populated it with my custom URI, the function URI. And again, for this template, please refer back to the documentation, which provides you how to create a custom skill using the REST API. So once I hit submit here, send, it will create a new skill set called IMDb skill. So this is the starting point. First thing you want to do is create a skill set. So once the skill set is created, you can further inspect it. So you can click on that and then look for the skill definition, the last tab. Now this skill definition provides the details that what this skill will be doing. So in this case, you can see that it is a web API skill, which means that it will invoke some endpoint with an input and output data. So it will invoke our function endpoint with the input of the name, and what it outputs is the source URL and the name. So these two fields will be further populated into the enrichment ID and enrichment name. These two fields later become part of our searchable index, and user can search for it and get the details back. So the next step here, once you have the skill set in place, is to import the data. So you can go back to search, and then there is a tab to import data. So let's follow through this import data wizard. So first thing you need to provide here is where is your source data that you want to put it into the search index so that your application can query search and return the results. So in my case, I would say Azure Blob Storage, but these are different options. So you can actually pull data from your SQL Server database or SQL Server on VM, Cosmos DB, as well as the Azure Table Storage. Since my CSV file is located on the blob storage, I will select this one. You can provide the name, demo2, and what data you want to extract. You want to extract the content and metadata. The parsing mode, since my file, I already know that it is a CSV file, I'm going to use the limited text parsing. But if you have a JSON array or lines or simple text, you can specifically select the parsing mode. So this gives you more control. In this case, a delimited text, and its first line is a header and is separated by comma. And this is where I need to point the import data, say where is my source file located. So I have uploaded the source file, a single line CSV file into the storage account. So we'll go ahead and select that. Click on demo. So this particular demo blob container contains a CSV file. With this, you can, if you want, you can provide a subfolder within it and just provide a description. I would say move on to next. Okay, so at this point, import data is parsing through the schema and preparing that information for the next steps. So remember, I told you about cognitive skills. There are some built-in skills as well as custom skills. So import data wizard allows you to select inbuilt skills if you want to. So some of the inbuilt skills examples are the enrichments. So you can see that you can do a people name extraction. You can do an organization name extraction. You can detect a language and translate text. So these are the inbuilt skills, but we are not going to use any of this. So we can just move on to the next. One thing I would probably make sure is in a previous step is my search cognitive services selected here. Okay, so this is where you need to specify, and this is where you need to spend some more time designing that what you want to return from the search index, what you want, which fields you want to be filterable and facetable, searchable, you want to apply any suggestions and retrievable, right? So in this case, my schema for input file has these many fields. So source system, title ID, title name, release year, type, parent, and search query. These are my CSV fields. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to make all this retrievable. So whenever I make a search query, it should return all this field. If you uncheck one of these, which means that even though that field is in the cognitive search index, you won't be able to retrieve it. So make sure you take a time to fine tune this information here before you index the data, because you cannot change this information once you have the indexer created. So I will make all the fields searchable. The second thing I will probably make is I need to add two more fields. If you remember from the deck that we are having two new fields. So enrichment ID and enrichment name, right? These are the two new fields which are not exist. So I'm going to add a field. This will be towards the end of it. And we'll make sure that I'll copy the correct name. So the enrichment ID. And I want this to be retrievable. And then another field is called enrichment name. Both retrievable. Now, depending on your need, you can make them filterable and facetable. So I'm going to actually make the title IDs filterable and facetable. So once this information is there, you can go ahead and say create index. Okay, I need to name here demo index 2. Okay, so at this point, let's look at this as well. So the indexer is a job which reads the CSV file called the custom skill and enrich the data and put it into the index. Now, this step asks you that how frequently you want to run this indexer, right? So in my case, it's just one time, but in real world, you want to run it hourly or daily based on how frequently your underlying data changes, right? Let's say you have a nightly dump on new data, which goes to the blob storage and you want your search to be updated with the data. Then you can probably say daily, or you can set your custom schedule, how frequently you want to run this indexer, right? So I will just name it, and in this case just one time, which means that once it runs, it goes to the storage accounts, pull the file, and then run and insert the data into the index. Okay, so we can go back to the indexers and we want to see the progress. So this is our demo2 indexer, right? And then it has completed successfully. My input file has a one record and it has processed that file. Now, if we take a look at quickly here into the search explorer and go to the demo index 2 and search for all the records, you will see that the enrichment fields are blank. So this is something that you need to connect your custom skill to the indexer, and you can only connect after you run it one time so that index definition becomes available. So what we will do is we'll go back to the indexer and then go to the demo indexer 2, go to the skills index definition. Right, because at this point, the indexer does not know about custom skill that it need to invoke. So this is the place where you will make a change. So skill set name, this will be the skill set name of our IMDb skill. That is the name that we gave when we created the custom skill. So populate your skill set name here. And two more things. We have two fields that we need to populate. So go to your output fields mapping. And then we are going to specify that, hey, also populate these two fields with the information returned from the custom skill. So populate the enrichment ID and enrichment name. That's all. Save it. So at this point, we have connected a custom skill with the indexer. At this point, we will do the reset of the index and rerun it and then run again. OK, so let's go back to the progress view and let's make sure it ran second time. So you can see that it has successfully ran. And then now, if we go to Search Explorer and search for our data, we will see the enrichment ID field populated, which is a title from IMDb, an enrichment name. So this is this was the name in CSV file. So this skill has executed and it has populated the enrichment name, right? Okay. So with this, I will go back to the deck again and just wanted to recap everything. So we created search index, created a custom skill using Postman, and then we run the import data wizard and then updated the indexer definition to connect to the custom skill and reset the index and rerun and query the data to make sure that the data is populated. So at this point, I would probably open up for questions. So any questions, guys?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, and maybe, I have a question, probably very fundamental. Maybe I have missing something. Talk. So you mentioned that there's a multiple indexes and multiple indexes. Can you explain a little bit more on why do we need multiple indexes? What's the benefit?
Okay. Yes. So the concept of search is imagine index as a table in your database, right? So you have a customer table, you have a products table, you have top ratings and reviews table. Now, index is a similar concept of a table. It is an isolated set of information which user or application can search against it. Right. So most of the time, any real world application will have multiple search indexes, getting information from different sources and also presenting this information into different screens. So it's a way to set the context that what do you want to search? So another best practice is that you want to limit the context of the search to the related fields, right? You don't want to create a single search index which has massive fields on it. So if you can logically break down, let's say you want to search a product, then you will create an index with a name product index, which contains all of your product details where user can quickly search on it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yes. It's so it's have a better control of the searching behavior. So
Yep.
Okay. Another question is, so when you mentioned the indexer in real world, indexer need to schedule to run maybe hourly or daily or whatever, periodically. So when it runs, does the indexer will go run over the whole data set or just the new data in the data set or change the data,
Yes, that's very good question. Very good question. So indexer when it runs on hourly basis,
Mm.
it only takes the new files. So whatever files have been changed, it takes on and then index it. There is a behavior you can control for delete files. So let's say you want to delete the data. When you delete the files, there is a checkbox where you can set that, hey, as soon as files deleted, delete these index entries as well. Uh, but if you want to keep the files even after deleted, you can certainly control it.
Okay. It's great. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other questions? So in order for you to build this end-to-end solution, I think you will definitely need documentation. Um, so I will make sure that we will share that link along with, which provides you the structure of the input and output expected for the custom skills. Okay. All right, guys, if are there any other more questions?
So just curious, can we build any mobile applications and provide the input and then get the results back?
Can we create? So the consumer side, how you query the data is either REST, is all through REST API to the search, right? So your mobile application is one consumer, which can make a request to the search and then get the result back.
So just for example, I just want to give the movie name and I want to get the ratings, right? It's
Yes.
simple, and we should be able to run through this and then use the custom skill to get the data from IMDb and then and display the results back.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The
Okay,
whole
thank
idea
you.
of custom skill is to enrich your data, right? So let's say you have some set of fields of data, but you want to enrich it with other information. This provides a very easy way to integrate an external API call. You make that call, get data back, and that data becomes part of your search.
I see. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. And this is just one use case, right? It can the cognitive skill has a lot of different features like OCR, PDF. It can also read the text from within the PDF and index it. It's a very huge topic, but for this session, I limited it into just the custom skills. Okay, guys, so any more questions? I guess if not, then happy Friday and thanks for joining today.
You too. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.